Greetings fellow ukuleleans, Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with a new ukulele tutorial. Today I'd like to talk about a music theory phenomenon, a harmony phenomenon called the 4 minor chord. It's a really common songwriting trick. It's been used for many decades now, even centuries, but I'd like to talk about it in the context of a few really popular pop songs from the 20th century, that is, but this would apply to some of the more modern day things that you hear out there in the 21st century. So the first one, that one I was just playing, was In My Life by the Beatles, and that is one of the most cited instances of this phenomenon called the 4 minor chord. Let's see what the 4 minor chord is before we talk about the songs. So normally in a major key, the 4 chord is a major chord. You have in the key of C, for instance, C is the 1 chord, D minor is the 2 chord, E minor is the 3 chord, F major is usually the 4 chord, G is the 5 chord, etc. Well, that F major, the 4 chord, there's a really cool thing you can do, which the Beatles certainly did in that song, and that is take that 4 major chord and turn it into a 4 minor chord. Have the major chord first and then turn it into a minor. In this case, the key of C, that would be F to F minor. And that's a really nice sound. So I'll do, I'll make something up right on the spot here using C, F, F minor, back to C. Has a very timeless kind of sound, a real classic effect that songwriters have known about for a long time. And this goes way back to classical music, but I'm talking more pop today. We maybe in the future will get into how maybe Beethoven used this or how Schubert used it or someone like that, but for now it's going to be the Beatles and Radiohead and folks like that. So if we're doing In My Life in the key of G, as the Beatles did, there are places I remember. That tune, forgive my singing, but that's roughly how it goes. So we have G, D, E minor, G7, C, C minor, G. So it's that C to C minor to G that we're really zeroing in on. That's the 4 chord in the key of G, G, A, B minor, G, A minor, B minor, C, the 4 chord, and then turn it into C minor. And that really pulls you back towards the 1 chord. And that's a very common way to use the 4 minor chord, is as a strong pull back to the 1 chord. It's almost like a dominant effect, and dominant being the 5 chord or the 7 chord in the key. Those chords that tend to bring you back to the tonic chords, which are the 1 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. So we'll get into a bigger discussion of that, chord families and cadences and all of that sort of related material. We'll do that later. But for today, I'd like to skip all of that and just talk about the 4 minor chord and enjoy the sound of it, not to get too much into the underlying theory behind it. All right, so again, In My Life, 2 beats of G, 2 beats of D, E minor, G7, C, C minor, back to G. And it really pulls you back to G. That has such a strong gravitational pull from C minor back to G. So another song that uses the same sort of 4 minor phenomenon, a slightly different subgenre of rock from the 70s, would be Space Oddity by David Bowie. Everyone knows that tune. It's a really cool one. But it has that section of the tune where he goes, this is ground control to Major Tom. Or actually, it's the other way around. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. That section of the tune. It does it a few times, but the way it goes from F to F minor. In the key of C, F is the 4 chord, and F minor is the 4 minor chord. So that's how that goes in that song. Another tune from an even more different era. This was, I believe, the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken, although you can leave a comment in the comment section down below if I have this wrong, but Creep by Radiohead. Pretty sure that was the 90s, but it is a very famous tune, and it goes like this. So that's really just 4 chords. That's a 4-chord tune in the key of G, like In My Life. And it uses that same C to C minor thing that In My Life has, just at a much slower pace. So G to B, which is an actual chord change we could talk about separately as a different music theory phenomenon, but we'll save that for a later time. C, the 4 chord, and C minor, the 4 minor chord. So Radiohead knew the virtues of that great chord change too. Alright, one last one. We have this tune called Young Turks by Rod Stewart. That was a big 80s thing. So we're capturing all these different decades of rock music here. We did the 60s, we did the 70s, we did the 90s, and now we're going to fill it in with the 80s. And this tune by Rod Stewart, it has this little section. Don't let them put you down, don't let them push you around, don't let them change you. Probably the least known song out of all of these, but Young Turks was a pretty cool song by Rod Stewart back then. Young hearts live free tonight, time is on your side. That song, it's like a story song about a young couple, like a Romeo and Juliet sort of eloping kind of story, kind of like Jack and Diane, John Cougar Mellencamp, and lots of songs like that. So basic idea there is that we're in the key of C, and we do the F chord, the 4 chord. That changes to an F minor chord, the 4 minor chord that pulls us back to C. Such a common device. So if you're a songwriter, this is valuable knowledge to you about the 4 minor chord. If you just are interested in music theory, this is an interesting subject. And if you're just a ukulele strummer that likes to play music, this is interesting because it might help you learn these songs quicker. You might hear this sort of thing and say, oh, I know what that is. That's that 4 minor trick. And so it's really valuable for just about any musician. But again, when you have a major key, the first 5 chords in that major key would be the 1 chord, the 2 minor chord, the 3 minor chord, the 4 major chord, and the 5 chord, 5 major or 5/7. But that 4 chord being major, when you change it to minor, that gives it a really cool pull that brings you very strongly back to the 1 chord. So that's our minor 4 chord trick that we learned for today. Alright, fellow ukuleleans, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a lot. I will make some little song sheets available. I'm not going to give you entire song sheets of these, but those excerpts that I played, I will write out for you so you can analyze them and learn them on your own. And also, I'm going to link to a few videos down below, and you can check those links out, that are music theoreticians, people on YouTube that we all know and love that do music theory videos, them explaining the 4 minor chord, because there's so many examples I left out. I just picked 4 that, kind of came to me spontaneously, but you can see many more examples in those. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, be sure to click that notify bell, and I will catch you later, fellow ukuleleans. Bye-bye.